Hello. Just wait for that to kick in a bit more. Yeah, great. Welcome to the Nottingham Buddhist Centre. My name's Gareth. You're joining me for Friday's lunchtime meditation. Just checking the audio's okay. Yeah. So welcome back. So we are back with the Metta Bhavana today. I've been doing the mindfulness of breathing last week, and the last 2 weeks I've been exploring structure and creativity and how we can work with both in meditation. So we're not starting a new sort of series today, but as we're back to the Metta Bhavana, I'm sort of, the thing that's with me at the moment is meditation is a sort of creative way of working with I don't know, I suppose negative feelings about ourselves, particularly remorse in this instance, like a sense that I suppose it's probably quite likely that a lot of us have been really stretched at different times this year, and we may have done or said or just thought things that we at the time felt perfectly fine, and then later on we sort of I don't know, it led to us being in arguments with people or resentment towards the people we live with, or could be all sorts of things, or the people we work with. And then later on, perhaps it shifts and you just feel a sense of remorse, kind of, wish that hadn't happened. Definitely been moments of like, I suppose at the moment, I'm just clocking that there have been periods of feeling resentment towards different people over the last year. I didn't really want that to happen, but it just sort of built up at times. Kind of understandable how much kind of stress everyone's been under, and yet whilst being able to see that it's sort of sort of wish that I hadn't felt or expressed some of the things that I'd done. There's nothing too terrible, but I'm sure you can identify. There doesn't seem to be any point in just feeling bad about myself. That doesn't really help anyone either. So what do you do when you realise you've been in the wrong, or at least sort of held on to thoughts or views about what was happening that weren't particularly helpful? And the Metta Bhavana is there to help, actually. It's all of the stages are sort of useful for moving us beyond some sense of self-recrimination that we might get into. Perhaps it isn't about some sort of communication or something that's happened. Perhaps there's something else that's happened, some slightly unskillful thing that we've done. Again, it's this kind of pressure of this situation over the last however many months has probably led to all sorts of things coming out of us that we would rather not have come out. So what do you do with that? Because I suppose there is a temptation to just sort of to just feel bad, to sort of work up some sort of story about, or return some sort of story about what's wrong with us or what we're unable to do. And yet so often at the heart of unskillful behavior, to use the Buddhist sort of terminology for it, is a kind of is ultimately a kind of lack of awareness of other people, and behind that a sort of deep sense of like need or lack in ourselves. So then to dig into a story about what's wrong with us actually is really counterproductive, and is even perhaps more likely to make us repeating the same kind of mistake again, more likely. So what do we do? And this meditation as a sort of practical thing that you can do to work with those emotions, but it also points towards a kind of more general way out of that whole way of being. If we lived in accordance with what the meditation is sort of leading us to the way that the meditation is sort of leading us to experience and think about the world, then yeah, we'd be able to rise above a lot of that stuff, or at least not get into cycles of unskillfulness and then sort of self-recrimination, which then leads you back around to doing the same thing again. Yeah, so I'm going to be leading us through the meditation, the cultivation of loving kindness, the metta bhavana, as it is in Sanskrit. Yeah, but with that in mind, with that in the background. So yeah, so there are the 5 stages, of course. Our self, we're wishing ourselves well in the first stage. Second stage, good friend. Third stage, neutral person. Fourth stage, difficult person. Fifth stage is bringing those people together and then expanding outwards. So yeah, each of those stages, I would say, gives us a way of dealing with that particular difficult emotion that I'm talking about, which I'm calling remorse, but you probably find different names for it, which would stress different qualities. But the whole, I suppose I'm talking about the whole kind of complex of reactions that comes out when we're aware that we've done something wrong, or that we wish we had not done. So in the first stage, that sense of cultivating well-wishing for ourselves is partly just to really notice that sense that whatever we've to just notice what stories may be coming up for us, particularly those kind of really harsh self-critical ones, where we sort of talk to ourselves in the kind of schoolmaster voice, or whatever you want to call it, that kind of Victorian schoolmaster voice, something like that, just right harsh and pointing. Just noticing if that's coming up or something similar. And yeah, it's a chance for us to get underneath that to the kind of fundamental desires and needs which underpin all of our actions. If we look far enough down, however foolish or unfortunate the thing that we've done is, it will have been motivated by the same basic human needs that everyone's actions come out of. A desire for safety, happiness, avoidance of pain. We may have done that in a way that was unwise, but that was what it was. And we're almost certainly not the first person to have done whatever the thing is. So yeah, it's kind of getting underneath that, underneath the stories in the first stage, tapping into that desire to be well, which was underpinning everything. And then we move on into the second stage, the good friend. So there we can call to mind someone who sees us sympathetically, who would, who in a way can help us with that sense that, it might. If we're feeling guilty about something, it can be very hard to wish ourselves well, or it just feels as if it's not our place to perhaps to be kind to ourselves. But if we can bring in someone who is sympathetic towards us, who is kind of, without being indulgent, but does understand why we behave the way we do, or where we're coming from, or what we were feeling. That kind of helps to, again, to kind of get out of that kind of negative self-view. To almost, in a way, take a step back from ourselves and view ourselves with the kindly eyes of another. And then moving on again into the third stage, there we're bringing in someone, more neutral, wishing them well. And that starts to sort of take us outwards into a kind of broader context to see that, I don't know, when we look at others from that place of remorse, of guilt even, when we then look outwards at the world, we can perhaps connect with it in a slightly different way than the way we might normally do. Just to see that, if we've sort of had a sense of whatever we've done has been for basic human reasons, then when we look out and see all the other people, even if we don't normally have strong feelings about this person in particular that we're thinking about, we might be able to connect more with their with their kind of fallibility, their humanity. And then we move on again to the fourth stage. It's probably, perhaps we're thinking about the person that there's been, if there was a person involved, and there's always a person involved, that we've had this sort of difficulty with, wishing them well, and perhaps, just giving ourselves space to just be mentally kind of around that kind of the idea of them, the presence of them in our minds, without trying to fix anything really. And there may even be in that moment of we're having whatever response that we've had already, there may be room there to connect with them more deeply than we did before. And then moving into the final stage, we bring everyone together. So ourselves, good friend, neutral person, difficult person, and just feel the whole kind of shared presence, hold us all in mind, wish all of us well. Again, sort of putting our own motivations in that bigger context, in a kind of concretely with other people that we know, and then from there allowing that to go outwards even more, towards all beings who are motivated by the same fundamental desires as us. Even one of the there's sort of many ways to talk about the idea of wisdom in Buddhism, but part of it is this the sense that everything we do is sort of that's unskillful comes from a sort of a lack of realizing how connected we are with others. There's a kind of ignorance, perhaps there's a less judgmental way of putting it, but kind of we fail to realize how connected we are, and that makes us kind of blinkered and prone to making mistakes, doing things wrong. Not just because we sort of we have limited knowledge of what's going on in the world, but also because we tend to prioritize our immediate kind of impulses above our connections with others and our long-term kind of happiness from that perspective, which comes from realizing a kind of connectedness. So in that, as we move outwards towards all beings, we can kind of connect with that. We're like, we're all sort of in a similar boat. We're all prone to making mistakes. We all feel like we're the center of the world and get painfully reminded of the fact that that's not the case at times. And may we all be well, and grow beyond that state to the extent that we can. So that sort of movement somehow feels very cathartic, and also responsible as well. That I think we can get into a strange sort of martyrish kind of state of mind when you've done something wrong, where it feels like the best thing, as if it were good for other people to feel bad about yourself, and it's good to recognize the harm that we've caused and to want to move away from that sense of remorse. But if that becomes just a kind of story about what we've done wrong, and if it reinforces that sense of us being uniquely at fault and isolated from the rest of the world, then that's not very helpful for anyone. Although we may have to move through that story to get out of it. This can really help us to move on for the sake of others as well as ourselves. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be doing, and that's the kind of perspective we're coming from today. So if you want to settle into your meditation posture, if you're not already in it, I'm going to do a very brief body scan, closing your eyes, resting them in front of you in an empty space if you prefer to keep them open. Noticing physical sensations, what it's like to be in our body at this particular time. Noticing the way our mental state expresses itself throughout the body. Patterns of tension, release, energy, turbid, turbulent, smooth. Perhaps we feel tired, perhaps we feel restless. Just meeting whatever's going on without any particular judgment. So in the first stage, calling ourselves to mind, doing that in whatever way seems most appropriate. Even if it's just staying with the body, staying with what we can feel. And if there is a sense of harshness around ourselves, just seeing if we can meet what's going on in our bodies as openly as possible. Noticing the sensitivity, the aliveness of our own bodies. Their responsiveness, capacity for pleasure and pain. And in that responsiveness, the desire to be well. And coming back to the intention to wish ourselves well, to be in touch with our own desire for release. Even the tendency to worry, distract ourselves, comes from the same fundamental need. May we be happy, may we be well, may we be free from suffering. Moving on again into the second stage, calling to mind a good friend, someone we'll be pleased to see, perhaps someone who is pleased to see us. And if we're aware of guilt, ill will towards ourselves, just imagining how our friend might see us. So not going into stories about what we've done or who we are, neither justifying nor accusing, just being seen by this person who cares for us. And from there, starting to see our good friend more and more on their own terms. They can sympathize with us because they too have done things they regret, are driven by the same needs, which occasionally they express foolishly or have done in the past. May they be well, may they be happy, may they be free from suffering. Moving on to the third stage, calling to mind a neutral person. Someone we don't have strong feelings about one way or another. A neighbour, a co-worker, someone at the local shop, a friend of a friend. Calling them to mind. Feeling our awareness move outside of our usual polar focus on what we like or dislike, and what directly relates to us. Bringing into focus this less urgent part of the world, this other human being. They too are buffeted by their circumstances. Sometimes they do things they regret. May they be happy, may they be well, and may they continue to grow. Going back to the neutral person if we find we wandered off. Being patient with ourselves, no matter how many times distraction or restlessness disturbs us. All those mental acts are expressions of our same deep need. And moving into the fourth stage, calling to mind a difficult person. Perhaps someone we've had difficulty with recently. Perhaps even someone we feel some sense of remorse, regret. And we're not going to get into the story about what's happened. Either the tendency to blame another or to judgment of ourselves. We're just going to bring this person into our minds in some way. If the reaction's strong, that's enough for the moment. Just bringing him there. Opening the possibility of relating to them in a different way to the way we habitually do. And especially if there's an element of regret around our behaviour towards this person, there's real room to move beyond our usual way of being. The best way to make up for what has gone wrong, to lay the groundwork for things being different in the future, is to try and see them just on their own terms. Setting aside our needs or expectations as best we can. At least trying to see them as a person just like us. Just as sensitive, just as central to their own experience, just as prone to mistakes. And for them, there is also the possibility of regret. Perhaps it is so strong they don't want to let it in. May they be happy, may they be well, and may they grow. Moving into the fifth stage, bringing together everyone we've already thought about. Ourselves, the good friend, the neutral person, the difficult person. Noticing the different reactions we have to each of them. The different feelings about ourselves that they provoke. Tuning into what we share. What is common to all of us at the deepest level, however differently it appears on the surface. and opening up beyond that to allow in an awareness of everyone else, all the other people, all the other beings, all sentient things. And though not every living thing feels regret, they all act to some degree from a lack of awareness of their connectedness with others. Everyone who's not enlightened has that to some extent, and that can make us foolish sometimes. May we be happy, may we be well, may we grow. And then letting go of that intention, coming back to our body, back to the intention we began with. Just noticing what's going on again, any changes, and taking a few final moments just to sit without any particular intention. And then in a moment I'm going to ring the bell, and after that you can draw the meditation to a close in your own time and open your eyes whenever you're ready. Okay, so thank you very much for sitting with me. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how relevant that may have been for you at the moment, but yeah, I hope that may be useful at some point. Yeah, yeah, there is something very valuable actually. So to put this in a sort of broader Buddhist context, so there are a couple of sort of terms in sort of Buddhist terms. One of them is hri, which is derived from the word for sort of blushing for redness, which is sort of about that sense that you've done wrong, particularly if you have the sense that someone you look up to might sort of you might be embarrassed to sort of if they knew what you've done. And then, oh, actually, no, sorry, I think I got these the wrong way around. Because there's Hri and then there's apatrapia, and I think it's apatrapia, which is a sense of sort of being worried about the sort of the disapproval of people you consider to be wise, that they would think you've acted foolishly. Then the other one is that sense of that sense of blushing and sort of embarrassment, but it's kind of broader feeling. I think they both point to how actually as unpleasant an experience as it can be to feel remorse or I'm going to keep calling it remorse. Guilt feels sort of Christian and sort of it feels like it belongs to a different sort of way of talking about these feelings. That sense that we've not acted in up to our sort of ideals, or we've sort of made some mistake, however large or small that can, if we sort of can avoid the pitfalls of blanking ourselves out to it on one hand, and then on the other hand of becoming very sort of harsh and critical towards ourselves. There is a real kind of tenderness in there as well, if you stay with it, I think, which is really valuable and sort of which can lead to real growth. Both those terms, Hri and apatrapia, both seen as really valuable things actually for your sort of spiritual growth. It felt useful to sort of, or just interesting to see that whole, to see this practice in that context, and how, it sort of is both a useful tool for helping that process of those feelings becoming sort of spiritually positive and leading to growth, but also sort of how there is sort of the reason why that might happen, how it leads us from a sense of kind of lack of awareness of ourselves through a kind of painful realization into something much broader and more compassionate, if we can make the transition, as uncomfortable as it may be at the time. I'm sure there's been lots of material to work with as well, and may well be in the weeks and months to come as things continue to be sort of more stressful than usual. If you do have any responses, any questions, any difficulties that came up out of that, or just anything you would like to talk to us about, then there's the chat on this video. There's also our social media, Facebook and Instagram, and or you can send us an email. So thank you very much if you have been sitting with me. We'll be back Tuesday lunchtime. Rachel will be leading us, and then there's another session Tuesday evening, 7:30, and then this time again with me at Friday at 1 o'clock next week. So I think that's everything from me. If you are able to support us financially, then you can find a link to do that below in the video description, and that would be fantastic. We're still completely dependent on people's generosity to continue going. I'm at a relatively almost 2 months ago now, started working for the centre full time as the centre manager. So part of the money that you will go to keeping me fed and watered and warm through the winter. So very much appreciated whatever you can contribute to enable us to continue doing this. Without your support, we wouldn't be able to continue to be here. So it's been amazing to see just how much people have given over the last year. It's been really incredible, actually. But yeah, we continue to be in need, unfortunately, like so many others. Having said that, if you're not able to contribute, then just by coming along and practicing, yeah, it's our sort of firm belief that we are putting something into the world just by that. Certainly through a practice like the one we've been doing, it takes real courage to face our own vulnerability and our own mistakes. But yeah, it's tremendously positive for other people if we can do that. Yeah, so go well, take care. Yeah, no, I will see you soon.